kids can nowadays start using AI for their advantage?
I feel like we are like back in 2002 when we had a .com .net boom.
Most important ingredient of AI, that's data, is going to be organized, access, who owns it.
It's just that it's not an RDBMS. There's a wide variety of sources. So
Neighborhood Smarchitect. I'm here today with a diverse group of individuals. Why don't I let them introduce themselves and talk about their backgrounds?
Vikas Punna, founder CEO of Frisco Analytics, a data management company getting into Gen AI and master data management.
thanks for the button. Hey, this is Rameshwar. I'm a chief architect. And indeed, this is a diverse group and it's going to be a blast with this wide range of people with the vast subject that we're going to cover.
Hey, this is Casey, founder, chief architect, Rubik's Blockchain.
Thank you. As you see, we have to pass around the mic. I've got only a couple. We'll start with you, Vikas. So what do you think the state of AI is, state of data management is going into 2025?
That's a great question. I feel like we are like back in 2002 when we had a .com .net boom. New technologies coming up, new way of doing things are coming up. So it's going to be a very, very interesting 2024, 2025 going into.
I have a long answer, but let me make it a bit short as usual, Arvind. We are in the era of creator economy. And actually, people used to call it an iPhone era. And I'm going to call it as the Starline, the Boeing Starline era. And we'll come back to it. What do I mean by it?
Excellent. Casey.
I'm looking at how the global economy is now dependent on AI boom and related investments. So this is, policy-wise, a very important topic. But I guess the policy managers have still not grappled with the idea of how the most important ingredient of AI, that's data, is going to be organized, access, who owns it, how it is settled. These questions are, the innovation is racing on, and some of these questions are not answered. So we'll see how it moves next year.
Perfect setup. Thank you, Casey. So I'll dive into the world of data. In 2024, about 80% of the entire data created in the world is unstructured. Now, I know you're building a game-changing product that is focused on unstructured data. What made you figure that out? Why is unstructured as important as structured 10 years ago?
Well, as you rightfully mentioned, right, in the past few years, the digital footprint is increasing. And especially if you see from the COVID standpoint, there's a lot of new technologies that have come up and they are here to stay. And they are creating different formats of data for large volume of data computing. So it's really important when you're trying to create, doesn't matter your Gen AI applications or your business facing applications, to have a clean and a master record. It's important for you to be able to ask prompt answers to get back the right answers that what you're looking for.
Absolutely. Good point on the master data, Vikas. Thank you. Ram, your take on data, value of data.
So I'll connect both of them, which I always do. That's what my role is. When we say unstructured data, it's not like zeros and ones, first and foremost. There is a structure. There's a method to madness. It's just that it's not an RDBMS. There's a wide variety of sources. So when people call unstructured, there is a structure to it. Otherwise, you'd be passing it more. Now, Casey touched upon a point on governance. Like I said, I wouldn't call it a zombie movement, but the creator movement is where you can dream, but then you need guardrails. And that's what I call the Starliner. Is they send the Starliner to the space because they wanted to experiment it. And when you don't have guardrails, like Casey touched upon it, what kind of audit we have, what kind of governance, the same thing. Now they want to bring the people back to earth, and you know what the problem is. So this is where we are in our infancy stage of AI, Gen AI. You touched upon data. We are in this 21st century, which people are, and everybody's gung-ho about Gen AI. Look at data, go around and talk to the people. You'll still find data management mature is very immature.
Right.
And you and I have been talking for a long time. There is no AI without data. And being an enterprise architect, I take it to the next level. There's no data without information architecture. When you don't have enough systems, enough governance, look at it. The last couple of hacks in Azure, Okta, were lack of security, lack of compliance, lack of governance. So when you don't have guardrails, AI is not just data, it's information architecture.
So Rameshwar always talks about this in LinkedIn. He says AI is all about IA, information architecture.
Thank you.
So I remember, guys, if you don't follow him already, I'll give you guys the LinkedIn profiles of each one of these gurus in their own areas. Casey, on to you. So now you come from a very interesting background on blockchain. We connected earlier and you talked about the value of data and the importance of data in your business. Please tell us how do you see this evolving? What's in your mind? What's the value of data?
So I think looking at what everybody who's training AI models, there's a lot of open data, which I'm sure already different LLM models are already getting hold
Trained
of
on.
it in different ways, and that's
Yeah.
a big question whether who has the rights to these data. What happens once you've trained it already? What's the value of this data? But there's also a lot of data which is not in the open. There's enterprise data, there's data of governments, corporates. And so without bringing that into data models for training, perhaps this is not a complete story, because you need, you're talking about AGI or human intelligence. I guess you can't reach there with only partial data. And therefore, the key question is, how is all this data going to come in? Are we training only partial models? What's the value of it? And if you're going to bring all this data which is in closed systems, how is that going to be brought up? These are questions that need to be answered. And I think, as I said earlier, the policy response, if it is needed, is lagging behind industry innovation. And given the amount of funding, there's huge progress happening on all these fronts. And I think there's no industry body as well and taking on that. That's what you're saying. So
Anything to add?
Yeah, I think data is going to play a big role, right? And I think the governance and the quality of the data is going to increase over time. Yeah, data management's been around for a very long time, but I think we are seeing two different waves coming the past 5 years. The first wave is the COVID wave, right? We've seen a lot of employees doing remote jobs or getting new ways of accessing the information that corporate used to have. You have to come in, do your traditional login. That's no longer the norm. The second thing is with the generative AI, now you need to build all these LLM and chatbot that it's closed within the enterprise network, that you're not using outside data to train, but in reality, you're using internal data that has to be accurate. And how do you monetize that too? I think that's a bigger question for enterprise, I believe.
I'll come to the monetization part shortly because that's a good point. But I want to start with you. So in your line of business, blockchain, governance is such a critical component, right? So in the world of data, governance used to be bureaucracy, a couple of decades ago. Him and I have been in this world for a long time to say that I believe we have changed, that governance is now more of policies, data protection, who is using data, why are they using data, what do they use the data for? How does, in the chain, when the data starts moving towards that, highly secure, highly protected, and immutable, what does governance mean to you?
Well, in public blockchain models, which we are building, governance has to be automatic. Okay, there are set of rules, and the community has to vote for these rules through economic incentives. And therefore, these systems should function on their own. And the longer they function automatically on their own, the more robust the protocol is, the platform is.
Right.
So, I think somewhere if AI activities can be brought onto this, you will be able to enforce some kind of automatic fair rules, which is not going to be easy, but that's where I would see from blockchain perspective that to happen, that a blockchain, it's very difficult to get people accept your blockchain protocol because it's heavily scrutinized.
Yeah.
I can't, without the level of scrutiny that goes into this industry, because it's open source and people are really trying to attack your economic models, so you can get hacked. So that's the level of self-control that's happening. Whether that can be implemented for AI is, I think, perhaps more challenging, because there are different sets of data, different sets of actors. There are nation states. If you look at it, nation states have not caught up to the idea that their data is important. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, what's going to happen? And today they're kind of probably caught napping, but they would come up and say that, you trained on my data, and what does it mean for us? So is that moment going to come? And then how do we deal with that?
Yeah, you got up a very good point. The industry you're in with this, which is the blockchain, and you talked about it's being regulatory, but you also need data to train. How's your industry tackling this, and where do you think the 2025 is going to look for you?
No, I think, public blockchains have gone through a tough period. So you look at FTX, which is a very famous exchange that went down. But the good thing is that they've been able to pay off their creditors more than 100%. And this is the first time that if you look at traditional financial markets, they always needed government incentives, bailouts, intervention. This is good or bad, and there's a lot of fraud that goes on in the space. But good or bad, it's got self-governed, and it's able to move on its own. And that resiliency is very important going forward. So 25 looks to be very strong because there is focus on fundamentals, there's focus on use cases, which is going up. And I think the same thing about AI, that can it continue to run on its own? I think any industry has to go through a period of couple of downturns for it to become resilient.
Hype cycles.
And hype cycles.
Yeah, that's right.
And they actually have to go through a downturn where the actors have to
We're actually in a
test
period
it.
of disillusionment, which is actually good because when hype settles down, it actually goes, no, continue. Yeah. So,
No, I mean, the question is, where do you think has it gone through that moment where
It
people
is.
are
Is it in the
tested,
peak of the hype cycle, or is it in the
it
valley
is.
of the hype
the
cycle?
actors are tested,
Correct.
some
Yeah,
actors
correct.
going down, the frauds being caught out, the good players coming out? Is that happening?
it is happening right now. The peak of period of disillusionment is happening. 80% of enterprises are disappointed with Gen AI because the costs are exacerbated. We touched on governance, and again, we forgot to talk about one thing: my chief cleanup officer role, which self-proclaimed. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Well,
So let's talk about, you are now a chief architect of a Fortune company, right?
Yeah.
You guys deal with petabytes of data.
Scale.
Yeah, right. So you have to think about governance from a compliance, from a policy, and of course, as a chief cleanup officer, you are now in charge of making sure that every piece of data that is out there is valuable for the enterprise. If not, how can it be protected? So what's your point of view here, Ramesh?
So I'll have a long answer as always.
Okay.
My first thing is I connect the dots, try to go back to the past and come back to the future. He touched about immutability, and Casey touched about immutability and also governance. Technology has always been at the forefront. Governance has always been the laggard. Governance has always been catching up. In the world of crypto, if you've seen, the technology companies put governance at risk. Now, why am I bringing this into context? Fast forward, look at what OpenAI ChatGPT has done. They started with the mindset of governance and explainability, and look what happened. Look at the board of directors and how things shaked up overnight. Yeah. Now, the Suleimans and all came out and are calling explainable AI because the motto of what AI was to create a kill-free, a danger-free AI for betterness of the humanity of the world. But what is happening is in the quest for raising the hype cycles, they put everything in place. So now people are coming back. Governance is every other day, every state is talking of governance. We just had the California SB 1047, right. And we had the likes of GDPR and the likes of Casey also touched about the non-sponsored ones. When I start thinking about governance, guardrails doesn't stifle innovation. So first of all, let's talk what is governance. What is right in my culture is wrong in your culture. What is right in your culture is wrong to me. Do you get it?
That is you think that is a definition of governance?
It is. So we'll touch upon what governance is. Thanks to ChatGPT. As I started digging about governance, it is your beliefs, your rituals, your values.
Fair.
And funny enough, you will be surprised coming from the land of India. As I stuck in Rigveda, if people who know what Rigveda is, governance is so beautifully described in a three-dimensional word: time, space, context. So when the world was Milky Way, time and space were zero, which means a black hole, But as time and space started going a three-dimensional way, the context of it, of how you grew and how I grew, defined our governance. That's why if you see, the governance laws of California are different from that of Europe. The laws of Europe cannot be applied to India. The laws of India cannot be. This is why governance has a problem with bias, as with a hallucination. So your laws have to be effective in creating that.
You have a very different perspective here. You found a gap in the governance market. That's why you launched your company. I think, if anything, you are a practitioner who's been there, done this before on a day in and day out basis. What is your take on this? What is your definition of governance in your side?
Well, from the AI standpoint, if you are bringing emotions into the picture, right? At least we are too early to put emotions into this context right now.
You have agentic AI for the precise reason to be empathy and emotions. Yeah. Otherwise, what is happening is they're saying the Gen AI lacks human empathy. And that's why they're talking agentic AI to fix the...
I'm sorry, but I'm looking for information, not empathy, right?
So but it's still not AGI yet.
It is not. That's the key. See, we're using agentic AI to address PTSD. Why? The world is suffering through a lot of stress and trauma. So they need a companion. Humans have a biological companion need.
I understand, but you're training the data in a different way, right? If you're looking at an open AI, again, it's my argument, right?
No. We should have a diverse argument.
Right. So from that standpoint, I mean, they are being trained on a generic data, and that's why from the prompt engineering, you can actually tell exactly how you want to behave with me and what my thought process is. But I think we are still too early to bring emotional intelligence into the generative AI. But definitely, I think we are not too far too.
So Vikas, you again, I want to go back to governance, right? We are going to agentic AI, which is a different topic for a different day. But I want to focus on governance. So your product is actually doing something that you found as a gap out there with all the different technologies, right? What do you see as a gap? And how do you plan, again, your definition of governance?
Great question. So we are building a Lake Fusion product on Databricks natively. Precisely the reason, which is we are built on Lakehouse. So in that way, you're able to do your storage and compute at one place. Yeah. And the reason why we are building this from the LLM standpoint is when you look at every industry, they have their own LLMs, and the performance and the output of LLMs are different based on what LLMs do you use, right? So because of that, what we are starting to see is typically you're doing your rule-based engine or a fuzzy logic that's been around for a long time, but this LLM models have taken off tremendously, and what we are trying to hone in on is, hey, you have vast majority of the data, different types of data, you're bringing everything to your lake house. Now, how do you create your master record that you can feed into your business applications or your LLM model, so you're able to actually get a better prompt engineering on top of it?
I like this. So I'll bring this in full circle, right? You talked about agentic AI. The idea is Lake Fusion actually has those agentic AI kind of approach. What they saw as an opportunity is these same LLMs can now figure out intelligence that an average human could not figure out, right? That was the agentic AI. But in your company, if you look at a fortune level, it's hard to have just LLMs do intelligence. To your point, there is always human in the loop, even if you have multi-agent support, right? And then on the blockchain side, now if you think about governance, it's all about policies and protections. As you said, both state actors and organizations have to come together to figure out how to protect your data, how to govern your data. So that is your point of view. I think all three have phenomenal, unique perceptions about data governance, but they're all right. Right, and I think that's the beauty.
That's the beauty of
everybody's right. There's one angle related to that.
Yes,
I would
please.
like to say, and
Yes.
this I come from economic angle. So I think there's a war that's going to happen in terms of who owns the AI. So clearly, if you're talking about creating intelligence, even at the industry level or general level, I guess who wins it. Okay, yes. And when at least the large, there are at least 20, 30 large nation states in the world start realizing that importance of this, they're going to ask for local LLMs, local clouds. My data is going to be trained. So the angle I'm coming from is that all this has a cost. Okay, the cost of building LLMs or in a center is huge, as we know, because we're talking about semiconductors, which is usually extremely capex cycle. Now we're talking about building local semiconductor complexes.
That's right.
There's a protectionism which is justified, because if you're talking about who wins the LLM model, war wins the world, this all these discussions will come up.
The chips now are being blocked for the same reason, because, like you said, the future of any country depends on what Casey said. There's a war. I don't know whether we should use the word war, but the crisis or a power of a nation depends on at a chip level. And I think Casey brought up
one of the issues with that, Rameshwar, is that my concern is that there's huge cost of this.
Correct.
And I think there's a every likelihood of nobody coming out a winner in this. I think everybody needs to coordinate in this.
Yeah.
But you need to really solve the question of my data is my data. Okay,
well
at
said.
Industry level, nation state level. This has to be solved. Otherwise, this whole race to build your own chips, and I know the semiconductor industry well, it's a huge amount of unnecessary duplication that's happening, which has a huge cost, and ultimately will make Gen AI or AI ineffective because it's not cost effective.
That's
Anything cost effective doesn't sustain. So this is where your question of the governance, the data governance, these things are very important to come up. Right now, it's kind of free for all. And I'm more coming from an economic view than security or other views.
Fair. Absolutely. So guys, as we kind of wrap this up, I can see that all of your perspectives are absolutely right. There is a future for AI, and data is such an important part of it. However, you want to make sure you have the governance, you have the management capabilities, and you also have a little bit of intelligence capabilities as well. Hopefully in the future, as you said, it's financially able and accommodative, so it's affordable for the common organization.
I'll call it global.
Global.
Think local.
That's
think global. Act local.
That's right.
So
That's right.
it kind of solves part of the problem that what Casey is talking to.
So I'll wrap it up with this. Ramesh, I'll start with you. What are you most excited about, and what are you most scared of in 2025?
Like I said, as an entrepreneur and as an individual, I keep playing this. I keep reminding of the song. I've got the power of snap. You can dream unlimited. Nothing stops you. Remember the buzzword I used to use a long ago? Intergalactic automation.
Yes.
I can dream infinitely. But if I put the guardrail and the hat of an enterprise architect or a chief architect, what I'm scared is we don't know what we don't know. We're just at the beginning. Look at Microsoft as a clear example. They've invested, they poured billions and billions. Why couldn't they stop the leaks? The last 3-4 months, there have been leaks. Not just in Microsoft. Look at what CrowdStrike did. It brought the whole world to the knees. The future, war is not a right thing. The whole world could be brought in a standstill because we don't know. And if you don't put enough guardrails, we have a problem. But again, if you put guardrails, the nation-sponsored states, they care a damn about guardrails. They only focus on innovation. Is it innovation versus guardrails, aka governance? The time will tell.
So if I can summarize what you said, what you're excited about is information is in everybody's hands now. So you've got the power, as you said.
Got the power.
But the flip side of that is we don't know what we don't know. We're only human intelligence. We're not artificial intelligence. So where do we get stuck if we get stuck? Again, the example of CrowdStrike. I'll pass it on to you, Vikas. What are you most excited about, and what are you most scared of going into next year?
Well, first of all, what I'm scared of is I don't have the powers like he do. But what I'm definitely excited about is that we don't know what the next 10 years is going to look like, right? I mean, for the, since the .com days, I'm going to refer back to it. You kind of are able to predict what the next technology is going to look like. You're able to kind of see, what the next wave, at least in the near future, if somebody's built a company, what they're built for. But nowadays you're seeing so many new apps and build your own website, Divine, I believe.
Do your own thing
do your
for
own
everything.
code,
Yeah.
right? The plain English is just sufficient.
That's right.
The office that we are sitting in, Ijibra's office,
Yeah.
where the kids are able to build the videos themselves, right? I mean, that's powerful. So what I'm excited about is the scarcity that we don't know what's tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But it's a good way if you embrace technology and change.
So you're optimistic and scared of the same thing. You're optimistic
all?
in the excellent point. So to summarize what Vikas is talking about, he's optimistic about the age of AI, so to speak. But again, kids can nowadays start using AI for their advantage. Now, at the same time, what it could do, nobody knows. So what are we developing? What are we doing? Right? Everyone has a business, and what's that business catering to? Nobody knows. We can't look at a future these days, which we used to a decade ago.
Yeah, but already trillions of dollars have been spent in this
Amen.
technology. So there's a lot of innovation coming, and so quickly, so rapidly, and that's the fun part, right? I mean, everybody has their own mind, and the entrepreneurs.
We need a
think
time machine
different.
now.
Amen.
Yesterday.
Amen.
He's got the power. I don't know
He's
what
got
he's
the
waiting for.
Casey, I want to wrap it up with you. Your thoughts about what you're excited about going into next year, and what are you most scared of?
Excitement is all about the possibilities which he's talked about. I think there are at least some finite number of great possibilities, if not infinite number, and some great innovation is happening already. What I'm scared about is the economic sustainability of this. Nobody's thinking about it at the government level, the enterprise level. Trillions are going into it in the hope that something will come out. The even bigger concern I have is, does it result in bigger income inequalities around the world?
I thought we have universal income, Casey.
Universal income, if it comes for all the citizens, it's fine. But I guess it's never going to be like that. So already we have 1% of the population or big corporates having enormous power. And that's already causing geopolitical issues.
Of course. Yeah.
Are we going to see more? I don't have the answer, but this can be addressed. The good thing is, if innovation, brutal phase of investment into moving forward, is also parallelly with people sitting around, industry sitting around saying that how do we tackle this instead of each nation state building its own silos? Can we convince each other that we're not taking other for a ride? I think that is a crucial year 25 where we can set this right. If it goes beyond that, I think this could be that's my concern.
Fiasco. Well said. I'm going to summarize what Casey said as well. So I think you started off with the what you're afraid of, which is bad actors, economic incentives. Can I scale economically speaking, right? But then the positive side of that is the transparency of having these discussions at a state level or an organization level will help us get to that future where everybody has access to the same information and the same set of policies. So I believe that's that's a fair point. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being in the show today. We've got the power. Thank you all for joining me today. I want to make sure I have a special guest here who is the entrepreneur from iGebra and XSign-On. Srini, come on over. Hello. So this is Srini Vemula. He's the guy who is building a company that is influencing entrepreneurs and AI developers of the future. Srini, please say hello and tell what you did.
Hi, I'm very glad to be here with these folks, wonderful folks. So we are iGebra.ai, I like intelligence.
Your t-shirt has it, by the way.
Yeah, iGebra. So we empower next-gen responsible AI leaders. But no, we're not doing alone. We are taking guidance from the industry leaders to empower next-generation AI leaders. Here in Dallas, and collaborating with everyone, we just started a small office with XSign-On and iGebra together. But together, we all can empower next-gen AI leaders. Thank you, folks, for joining us here.
Srini, thank you. Well done on iGebra. Guys, once again, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I'm very excited about what you each can accomplish on your own and together.
It's always fun.
Thank you all.
Super. Awesome.
Thank you for watching. This is your friendly neighborhood Smarchitect. Like and subscribe for my Smarchitect shortcast.